We've got Kevin in Arizona who thinks there's a flaw in my logic, or probably better to say that I've made a. Hopefully, he can identify a fallacy because on the question of is it rational to believe in God? Go ahead, Kevin. You're on with Lloyd and Matt.
Wow. Okay. Thanks, first of all, for taking my call. And I got to say, I'm really nervous because I've never called into a show like this before. And I really appreciate what you've done as far as the show, because it really helped me when I was coming out of a fundamentalist Christian church. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Yeah, so to get straight into what I was about to say, give me 1 second. All right, so the maybe inaccuracy or flaw in your reasoning when it comes to whether or not it's rational to believe in God. I recall a number of conversations you've had where people asked you, if some kind of entity were to appear before you, kind of like a Damascus Road type experience, if some entity that appears beyond our dimension of space and time and, comes in front of you and says, hey, I'm God, or says, hey, God is real. You've said
if it's appearing before me, how can you reach the conclusion that it's outside of our space and time? Because that would seem to be inside of space.
Let me give you an analogy, because I expected you to ask that. So have you ever seen the Flatland? Like Carl Sagan talked about. So imagine so we live in 3 dimensions of space and time, right? So imagine God existed in a 4th, 5th, 6th, or however many dimensions.
Sure, you'd need to actually prove that. You need to prove that. You don't get to just assume it, and you don't get to assume that because you think there's something that's consistent with that therefore it's true. So how can you prove it?
It could be an alien. You're right. I'm not saying that it's
100%. What I'm saying is, how can you prove that it's a God?
Okay, here is the crux of the argument I'm going to make, and I definitely want to be corrected if I'm wrong. I'm never of the opinion that
that's a guarantee.
So basically, when you say to people that there's no good reason to believe in God unless you have basically unequivocal empirical evidence.
Not the position.
I think that.
Go ahead.
Okay, so then my perspective was wrong. Thank you for correcting me. Let's say
my position is that I'm not aware of any good reason to believe in God, and if God is supernatural and the supernatural cannot be investigated and confirmed, I don't know how anybody could have a reasonable belief in anything supernatural. And so from there,
I believe that there are ways. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just saying from there, make the case.
Okay, so let me make the case, and this is something that is multifaceted, so I guarantee you I'm going to articulate it poorly, but I'll do my best. So the idea is, essentially, God exists beyond our 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time.
How do you know
the reason why we can't perceive? That's the belief system, right? So
I don't care.
We can only really answer you based on actual facts. We can't just go off your imagination.
If you define a God that's
let me get my proposition out, and then I'll give you the basis of why I believe.
Kevin, if you define a God that is untestable, then there's no way for you to get to it is reasonable to believe in that which isn't testable, because you can't have evidence.
That's not exactly what I believe.
But you just said God exists beyond our space-time, and I asked, how do you know that?
I'm putting out my first premise. That was my first premise. So if you don't mind,
your first premise, Kevin, your first premise is hereby rejected. Start over.
Okay, sorry. It's reversed. I completely reversed because I'm nervous. That's the conclusion. Let me give you the premises. Okay.
Okay, because now see, this is what when you say God exists beyond our reality, and I ask, how do you know that? Why the fuck would you start with the conclusion? Arguments start with premises, and when I ask you why you believe this particular conclusion, I'm asking for the argument. So go ahead, explain to us how we can know that there's a God who.
Please have a little bit of empathy for me. This is my first time calling in any show like this. I guarantee you in the comment section right now.
I have plenty of empathy, Kevin, but I also have lines full of other people, and so I'm trying to get us to the point of
agreement. Please get out what I'm trying to say.
Even finish the sentence. Go ahead.
So, Matt, I'm going to try my best to make a good argument, but keep in mind, you are very good at your explaining
I'm
your
aware
side.
of
So
that.
please
I
just
don't,
give
need
me
a,
the
I don't need a preamble or a disclaimer. I just need the damn argument.
Okay, let me make the arguments then. Okay, so
Thanks for the
it is
preamble.
possible. It is possible. So first premise is, it is possible that there are more dimensions of space and time than we can currently perceive. So my second is, if there, man, I'm not going to lie. I'm nervous because I'm just trying to get a
already
point
messed
out,
up?
and I feel like,
So
because I'm trying to do
here,
my best,
let
and
me-
I was expecting,
let me-
a back and
let
forth.
me help you,
I'm
Kevin.
trying to debate you.
Let me help you, Kevin. You cannot get from "it is possible" to "therefore it is true." You have jumped out of the realm of standard syllogistic propositional logic, and you have entered the realm of modal logic. And so you can't get from "it is possible" to "therefore it is true." So your first premise has already broken any hope you have of getting to reason.
Okay, so Matt, let me say that that's absolutely 100% valid. I'm not here to try and one up you or do a got you, or I'm genuinely trying to understand your position better. And if I don't
believe there's a
articulate
God
myself well,
because-
that's to be expected.
Kevin, my position is really simple. I don't believe a God exists because I have yet to be presented with a reasoned, sound argument based on evidence. That's it. That's my position.
Okay, well, let me address that. Okay, I'm going to do my best to address it, and please, if I make a mistake, please correct me. So, scientific understanding is perfect when it comes to understanding the material world, right? So,
No.
three dimensions is supposed to have-
What on earth
Well,
makes
not
you think?
necessarily perfect.
Can I try and help you, Kevin, here? Kevin, I'm going to try and help you for a moment, and I'm going to try and do that
Please try and
by
steal my
reading
argument.
the
I'm
note
making an
that you
argument for you
gave
because I'm not
our
experienced.
screeners. When you spoke to our screeners, you said, you ask us to demonstrate if God or the supernatural exists, but our ability to comprehend the universe cannot encompass the supernatural. Does that reflect your argument?
Correct. And what I was about to argue, and you're correct that modal arguments are flawed when it comes to an absolute as to whether God exists or does not exist. So let me do my best to correct my mistakes. And I'm totally willing to say that I'm wrong if I'm wrong. Keep in mind, I'm nervous. I'm just doing my best, Matt. I appreciate you and I respect you, even if I don't always agree with you. So let me try my best. So it's possible that God exists. So let's go ahead and move further from that. You know, if God exists and God is infinite, it's impossible for a finite mind like ours to fully understand or comprehend God.
Kevin, can you hear me? So now you've
I
moved
can
on
hear you
to yet
perfectly.
another, now you've moved on to another argument that also begins with "it's possible." And this time you're just saying it's possible that God exists. I reject your premise. You have not demonstrated
Okay,
that
you
it's
have
possible
every
that
right
God-
to reject both of my premises, but I'm not
Both?
done yet. And I think it's
No.
tough for me to get
Kevin, you are done. When a premise is rejected, you don't just keep going on with the argument.
It seems like my approach is not best fit to this situation. It would probably be a better approach if it was just a one-on-one conversation. So let me say this then. I have no hope of winning against you in a straight-on debate because, you know, this is your life's work, and I respect the fact that you're passionate about advocating for what you believe, but there's no way I'm ever going to be able to construct an argument that is flawless.
Can I tell you my problem with your argument as you expressed it to our screeners? This God who we are unable to comprehend because we cannot comprehend the supernatural seems awfully anxious on us comprehending that he is a God and accepting his power and majesty and assigning him certain attributes. So God himself, assuming that you're talking about the Christian God, has a lot to say about us accepting the supernatural, but you're saying, well, we can't accept it, we can't comprehend it. So which is it?
Well, let me clarify, because I'm not a Christian anymore because I was in a very fundamentalist Christian church that I was more like a cult. And it really helped me to have this show to get out of it and to see the flaws in their reasoning. What I believe is that this idea that God wants us to believe in him or her or it or whatever, I don't think that it necessarily matters, to God, whether we believe in God or not. I don't believe in a God that creates an eternal hell.
He
And I don't believe in a
seems
God
to want to destroy
which is
people who don't believe in him one way or the other, according to the
Exactly. I think
Bible at
that's
least.
it's an
Kevin-
awful belief. I think it's disgusting.
Kevin, you have abandoned the parts of God that you didn't like. You've invented a God that you do like, and you can't do anything to demonstrate that the new God that you like better is real. So what was the point of calling?
So the point of calling was to better understand where you're coming from. And I want to acknowledge that I could talk to you for hours and I could present all the experiences or beliefs or syllogisms or whatever. There's always going to be a flaw in any argument anyone makes about the supernatural. Whether someone says there is a God or there is no God, we can never create an argument that's perfect.
Kevin,
Because we're talking about something infinite.
Kevin, if you cannot create an argument that is valid and sound, why do you believe it? Why would you believe something without a good argument for it?
Okay, now let me go to a different piece of evidence that I think you don't believe either. Personal experience.
It's a good question. I want to hear your answer to that.
I'd love to.
Why would you do it back to front? Why would you say, this is what I want to believe, and now I'm going to go looking for arguments to support it? Why wouldn't you first have the reasons to believe something and then believe it? Why are you doing it the other way around?
Let me give you an example. Now, it's a very short story. I'll do as quick as I can to tell you it was very telling. It was a synchronicity. I know
we do have other callers,
term,
Kevin, and it was a very straightforward question.
Go ahead with the question again, and I apologize for not answering it.
So what you're doing is you're saying, I want to believe this. And what I'm going to try and do is find all sorts of arguments to support what I want to believe. Why are you doing it that way around? Why aren't you instead examining the evidence and coming to your conclusions accordingly?
I have done that, and I've spent a long time of my life both as a theist and an atheist. I went from being an agnostic, kind of not wishy-washy, to a fundamentalist Christian, to an atheist, to maybe more of a believer in God, but not a believer in the kind of monotheistic Abrahamic God. So if I'm wrong, I want to know that I'm wrong. Like a lot of people
you haven't
call
answered
in and
the
they
question,
want to.
and it was a really good question. But if you don't want to answer it, then that's fine.
So I'm sorry. And again, I'm nervous, and I know I'm not making the best points, but this is my answer. I don't know whether God exists or whether God doesn't exist. And for me, it's more of a following of a gut feeling or an intuition. And I agree that I have a cognitive bias. I would rather there be meaning in the universe than no meaning. So I agree that I'm biased.
Kevin, what you're saying is you don't care whether or not, you don't care what the truth is. And you called in to challenge what it says here from the call screener is that there's a flaw in my logic about what is or isn't reasonable. And now after this discussion with Lloyd trying to get you to answer questions and me trying to get you to answer questions, now your position is, I don't really care whether or not it's reasonable. I have a bias. I want this to be the way it is, so I'm going to go with it. Thank you for completely wasting my time, Kevin, and Lloyd's time.